So hey everyone, Mike Mangle. So I'm a full worker currently for the last few months. Before that, I worked for Microsoft, which is in the UK, which is kind of why I've got my Microsoft Unicorn t-shirt. I got about a dozen t-shirts from working there for a few years, and this is easily the coolest. So I'm going to talk about Azure Functions. It's a fairly high-level talk. We're not going to have a ton of slides with arrows and stuff and kind of blowing people's minds. I'm just going to show you some cool stuff.
No magic.
There's no magic. Do you use Azure? There's no magic in Azure.
There is Linux.
Yeah, there is Linux. You know, there's more. So
40%.
It's more than that.
More than now, isn't it?
Yeah. So there's more Linux servers running in Azure than there are Windows. Do you want to know why?
Because the networking infrastructure runs it.
Oh, that as well. All right. So Azure Functions. So this is. I just had to It's not a Lambda, right? So this is
It's a
not
scientist.
It is. Half-Life.
Yeah, it's awesome. Right, so the first thing about Azure Functions is what is it? And people talk about the serverless architecture. So the quick question about what is serverless architecture? Well, sorry?
Marketing.
Well, it could be that. Yeah. We've all got to have catchy slogans. Now I've worked out what it is, right? So serverless architecture is going back to basics, right? So this is what I believe is happening inside the Azure data centers. Right? I think we're going back to punch cards and feeding them in and stuff, and Fortran, right? Fortran.net, that's the next big thing. You heard it first. I'm just saying. I got no secret information anymore. So
It's COBOL.net all the way.
100%. But what is serverless? Well, got to throw in a bit of Pokemon for current pop culture and stuff. But the architecture's kind of evolved again. So we were writing monoliths. Now we're writing microservices, and we're kind of thinking about writing some serverless code. Now, when I say monolith, did anyone else realize, when you were writing a monolith, it wasn't called a monolith. It was called enterprise architecture. Right? It's an enterprise app. Now it's a bad thing, and we call it a monolith because that sounds really bad. So I'm wondering what microservice is going to be in the future, small blocks of shit. I don't know. Quite cool. So yeah,
Adding graphics.
yeah, right. So the whole thing's evolved again, and we've got some other stuff we can do. I'm not saying you should only do serverless stuff, and I will get to it. Maybe you shouldn't be doing it at all. But this is another architectural paradigm you can do. So who has seen this canonical slide about IaaS and PaaS and SaaS and stuff? All right. So I walk basically through this. I feel like I can kind of plagiarize this a little bit because I used to work for these guys and I've done talks on this exact thing. But basically, over on this side, this is all the stuff you're in charge of. Right, if you have an on-premise architecture, an on-premise piece of hardware, so you've got to worry about networking, storage, servers, all this stuff, all the way right up to the apps you put on. So we don't really want to do that anymore. That's why people are moving to the cloud. So we kind of move one step nearer at this side, infrastructure as a service, or IaaS. And what that is the networking and servers and stuff is kind of worried about by Microsoft or the cloud provider. For you, but you just worry about what OS you're going to run, Linux, middleware runtime, and then the apps kind of sat on-side there, and that's okay. So you've got a little bit less to worry about. Then you come onto platform as a service. This is, I think, what the Azure cloud really excels at, and they're doing really good stuff in the PaaS piece. But basically, you just kind of whack on your app, your stuff, and you just don't have to worry about anything else, and it just runs, right? Now there's SLAs around stuff going down and things, so you need to kind of be aware about the disaster recovery process and stuff. But basically, you're not really worrying about you're not installing the latest .NET runtime on this thing, and you're not worrying about the OS having to be patched or stuff. So they'll do all that for you. And then you kind of got this side, which is software as a service, which are things like Office 365 or Outlook. Or the portal itself, you could call this software as a service because it's just this thing running. You basically hit a browser, you connect to it, and you really don't worry about anything, right? So in many companies, you're probably writing software as a service. So your consumers of your product, your service, they just go to the internet and then they run your platform, right? You might be running that on a platform as a service, on the infrastructure as a service, or even on premises. But if you're providing some sort of online service to your customers, you might be using software as a service. Now, the reason I show this is because of the gentle progression you get into not caring about the things that you're what your app is built on, or the foundation pieces. But I've come up with a really good analogy. I think I've got two. Oh yeah, sorry. This is what serverless is, right?
Is that magic?
I'll repeat, there is no magic in Azure. A lot of people might say there's anyway, it doesn't matter.
Dark sorcery.
Yeah, well, not even that dark.
Yeah.
It's just there to make Heading's life hard. But anyway, so this is like serverless, right? It's like forget software service. It's just like I want it now. Go, give me the thing. Now I've come up with a couple of analogies for this. So I'm gonna test these analogies on you guys first. So on premises is like buying a house, right? You've got to worry about everything. Your land rent, something breaks, you've got to fix it. You get subsidence.
Sydney, none of us can afford a house.
God, yeah. I'm new to this place, but I can't afford to live here. Right, so that's on premises, right? Then you've got IaaS, which is kind of like renting a house, right? So there's some stuff you do. Like a mate of mine, he's just redecorated his house. Apparently that's a thing here. I don't know, but if his floor breaks, someone can come and fix that. So that's kind of IaaS is renting a house. Then you've got PaaS, which is kind of like Airbnb. I'm going to hire this house for a week or so, and then this is a safe space. And then this is like serverless. Cheap, run by the hour. Right, okay, so that's one. That seemed to go okay, right? I've got another one, just in case that one is going to get me fired. On-premises is like buying a car. IaaS is like renting a car. PaaS is like Uber, and serverless is like stealing a car. So these are nice little analogies. But the point of this is that, like this thing, I don't care about anything that the car does. I just want it to do my thing, like get me from A to B, probably drag racing or whatever, and then I'll just dump it. And that's kind of what serverless is. Serverless is a bit like not really having to care about any of the other stuff. It's just run my stuff, get out of town. So, okay, so this is my public service announcement. What Microsoft has built with Azure Functions, and they're now called Function Apps, is, let's say, not complete. So the majority of my talk is running through a few different demos, and I'm going to show you some stuff, how to get started, that sort of thing. Every time, so I built a flag, right? So every time I hold up this little public service announcement flag, this is kind of the gotcha flag, right? Because there's a lot of problems in it, right? This is preview, but this is not application insights preview, which is pretty solid. This is preview. Right. This is like it should be an insider project, but now that Microsoft is all open and everything's open source and stuff, it's like, well, we've got to develop in the open
So it's .NET Core.
It's rawer than .NET Core, which is a problem. So every time there's a gotcha or something doesn't quite work, I'm going to hold up this little flag, and then hopefully you guys will remember like the link. That's my aim. Okay, so let's do some demo stuff. So you've all stolen the chairs. That's fine. That's fine. No, I'm good. Oh,
The old man will stand.
make me feel bad. All right, so let's go to the portal. So this is the portal. Who has not seen the Azure portal before? Okay, a couple of people. Okay, do you not like it? Do you want me to change colour?
It dies and stuff.
Oh, look at that! Double click and changes colour. Now, the only reason I'm showing you that is because I've got loads of different subscriptions, and basically mine is the dark one and all the others are different colours. So I know if I'm going to update mine or someone else's. So a little tip for you there. Okay, so how do you make an Azure function or a function app? They are located nowhere. This is the first gotcha, right? You can't find them.
That's because they're serverless.
So if you click the plus on this side, this is where you kind of see all of the different apps and stuff, and no matter where you look, you won't find it. Now that's because it's super preview, and what you have to do is if you type in anything to do with function, maybe select function app, and then it does like a basic search over all of the things. Function app. The reason you can't find it is because it doesn't have a category. First gotcha, okay? So don't worry about that. But function app is the latest add to the tool to the family of the web apps. So you've got logic apps, you've got web apps, you've got API, thank you, API apps, and now you've got function apps. So it's the same sort of thing. And if you're using any Azure right now with web apps, you've got this thing called a web job. So it's basically, this is the new web job. So it's a web job with no front end. Because if you want to write just like a little function that say every a couple of minutes, it kind of keeps your app warm, right? So it just like hits an endpoint. Right now, you've got to deploy a web app, and then you've got to set up a web job on a schedule. So that's kind of a bit broken. So this is like web jobs 2.0. This is what web jobs should be.
What does that fix as a web job?
So what does old web job do?
What does it solve? What does that solve?
It solves not needing an entire web app. So, and I mean, there's other stuff like this whole serverless thing. There's bits of it that are pretty good, but it means that you don't have to deploy a web app, have an actual endpoint like a.
So you actually currently to create a web job, you actually need a front end. Any kind of web job.
Well, you need an entire website. Yeah. Like the web job is like secondary. So now what they're doing is they're kind of promoting it. So we go function app, we hit create, and then we get a new function app in a few seconds. Oh, sorry, when I actually fill it in. So let's go something unique. Will it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unique too.
All right, what I'm going to do is alt-net. All right, there's no way that's going to be taken. So I'm going to create a new resource group. Now, first gotcha. Okay, the way that this thing is organized is you kind of want to pay for when you call a function, and maybe it's a free tier, maybe it's not. The downside is if you click Classic, then Classic is going to use an existing service plan. Now, this is you might organize all of your or some of your apps into a service plan, which is like a server farm. You might have 2 instances of that, and your function app is going to live inside that. The downside of this is that it can basically be turned off. So if your function doesn't get hit or nothing in that service plan gets hit, then the instance will basically go cold, and then your function is not running. Generally, that's not a problem. If you're exposing an endpoint, then that's fine, right? Because the endpoint still actually exists. So you hit the endpoint, function app wakes up. But one of the bugs with the preview stuff is on a schedule, it will automatically turn off, and the schedule, the scheduled task, will just never run. So, some of these things we kind of learned the hard way. So let me go and create this. So this takes like 40 odd seconds. So in that time, I'm going to tell you a quick story. So I cycle home at night. This is nothing to do with the talk. I cycle home sometimes from Macquarie Park to Forestville. 14k, thank you. Last night I forgot my keys, so I was sat outside on my deck making this presentation and doing this stuff. I got bit 15 times by a mosquito, and I am in agony right now, so FYI. Right, okay.
Cool story.
It's a nice little story. You got to fill the time somehow. All right, so deployment's coming. So when it does create, and then we'll get a little ping in a second, you'll find it under App Services because, as I say, it's part of this suite. And I've got different functions, so like these things. Mongo is my family nickname, so it's not an insult. I'm just who we are. So hopefully in a second, deployment started. It's yours normally pretty quick. Oh.
You remember you're not in England anymore?
Oh God.
You picked the Singapore data center.
Well, that's because my subscriptions are all because in order to get an Australian to deploy to the Australian data centers, you need to have some sort of business in Australia, and these are all of my old subscriptions.
Even then, you have to get past border forces.
Dear. Seems a pain in the
We're
butt.
currently on strike.
All right, so
Shame.
the notification will eventually kick in, but basically we've got this alt-net thing, and we have a function app. So this screen that we see now, kind of gone mostly full screen, this is written in Angular 2.
That explains the performance.
In TypeScript, more performance. Probably does some class inheritance. Just saying. But the actual Hello World guide stuff is not too bad. So like you've got this intro, and it's like, get started quickly with a pre-made function. So you've got this timer. You can pick CSharp JavaScript. These are the only 2 that are supported, like from this bit. But it also supports PHP. I'll show you actually in a sec. But it supports like 8 different languages now. It's actually quite good. So if we just pick timer, say C#, create this function, and then on the left-hand side we have timer trigger C#, which was the name that I didn't scroll down to. That's the default. And this does something on a timer. The default timer is, I think, every 5 seconds. You get this brilliant little tour thing. I'm the Tor, so I'm going to close that. Right. So when you're developing your function app, you've got your code up at the top. Now, who knows what this is? Run.csx, the new CSS extension.
Script.
C# Script. That's right. Yeah, because it wasn't hard enough. So, C# Script, public service announcement, is hardly supported in anything. Visual Studio hardly supports it. Inside Visual Studio, there's a new, since Visual Studio 2015 update 2, I think, is it 2 or 1? There is an immediate, no, not an immediate window, an interactive window.
Update 2.
Update 2, thank you. So, interactive window. What you can do is interactive window is C# Script. No one's really telling you. So the only way to run your code inside Visual Studio is to highlight it and then right-click on it and say run in interactive window, which is not a great development story, but we'll get to other much bigger improvements. So basically, you've got your code. So you write your code using the Monaco toolset, so it's okay. You don't get too much IntelliSense though. So if I go like my timer, not really any IntelliSense, but if I go oh yeah, no IntelliSense in fact. Right, so raw, okay, a little bit raw. So we scroll down a little bit, we get some logs, and it's like, oh my god, this thing's already running, right? Which is great because I haven't actually told it to do anything yet. I haven't enabled it. It's enabled by default. Again, you know, you probably don't just want to be running this, you know, without actually testing it. We'll talk about testing again. Oh my god. Oh.
Ran again.
Yeah. Hey. See. So like every minute. Every
So
minute.
you're programming in production.
You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. But we'll get to all of this stuff. So then, if you want to run, say your function requires a certain set of input, you can type the input. You know, normally some sort of JSON object. You know, whatever.
It's charging you as well?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So this is the future.
It will be, right? It will be.
You can get charged.
All right. So then you kind of say save and run, and then if you, regardless of the timer, the schedule, the input, whatever, the trigger, this thing just runs, right? So. It compiled itself because C# Script has to be compiled. It's not ASP, classic ASP that is, and then it runs. So you kind of see, well, this isn't a great coding experience, and it doesn't get any better, unfortunately. But first, let me tell you about the integrate piece.
At this point.
At this point, yeah, I mean, this is like super preview. So I do hasten to add, this is going to be incredible when it's done. It's not quite there yet. So the trigger that I have set up is a timer. So you can set up different triggers. I'll have to create a new. You can't just edit the trigger, unfortunately. So I'll have to create a new one and show you some of that. I'll do that in a minute. But the schedule currently is this format, which I'm not from a Unix or Linux background, but this is a cron thing, right? Okay, so if I do that, what do people think that should do? So basically, you've got. This is a special cron as well. If you actually look at the help, it says this is a cron expression. You click on that, it takes you to Wikipedia. That is not what this is. That is not the same article because there's no seconds in it. So there's a few issues. But this basically should be when the seconds hit 0 and every 5 minutes, run this schedule, right? And that works perfectly, right? What do you think that would do? No. Public service announcement. That does not run every 35 minutes. That runs every minute and every 35 minutes. I couldn't tell you. So just like bear in mind, it's raw, right? But I'll show you some cool stuff you can do because, yeah, it's cool. So you get the help is pretty good. So for any of these triggers or the events or anything that you're doing, inputs, outputs, the help down the bottom is not that bad. So for instance, output. Say our output wants to be towards. I don't know, and Azure Service Bus and Azure Table, you know, whatever. We've got all this stuff, document DB. So you kind of click it, you kind of select, and then you have to fill in all the stuff that you would get in your portal for connection strings or whatever it is that you need, and then you save, and then it's just go. And then you've got access to that inside your app, which again we'll show. So another thing to show is manage. Super important. We've got delete and enabled. So my tip to you is just disable it straight away. Other than that, you've got monitor, which gives you really base information. So this is just going to tell me how many times this thing's run. Yeah, it's okay. So it's run 4 times since I started it. So I'm being charged for that. So I'm gonna kill this. But before I do that, let me hit new function. And when you set new function, and you don't go through like kind of the start template screen that we got, where it's like, here's how you get started, 3 options, language. Then you get this, you get to choose a template. So if you just kind of click all, it's quite cool. So there's templates for starting you off with blob triggers, empty stuff, event hub, face locator. It's like a little sample experiment you can do. Webhooks, GitHub commentator. It's actually pretty rich. And one of the cool things that you'll see if you click experimental. Oh, not experimental. I'll go all. So we've got kind of C# samples and Node samples for most of the stuff. They're like the common stuff. But you've also got things like PHP, Batch, PowerShell, Bash was up there. So you've got like different samples written in different languages. F#, awesome. No Fortran.net, but I hear it's coming. So we've got that. Now, the other thing to note is function app settings. Kind of click this. If you don't click dynamic, you click classic, you won't see this. But basically, your app is going to run with a certain amount of memory, and then it's going to kind of finish. So you can fiddle about with that here. And then you've got all this other stuff. Now, let's see how we can configure continuous integration. Okay, so you want to set up a new continuous integration source. So what do? You kind of go through this, the blades, and you get to Microsoft Studio Team Services. Okay, next one. That doesn't work at all. I've tried in
Team integration.
Nice. Okay, I'm actually a fan of Team Services. I think it's pretty good. It does not work with this integration, as far as I can tell. I've tried multiple different accounts, different subscriptions. I cannot get it working. It just errors. Other than that, all of these seem to work perfectly. So as everyone uses GitHub, who cares about VSTS? So, but the idea of that is you can check in code, and then it can deploy your function. But you may say, where are you going to deploy it to? Because how do I do staging? How do I do blue-green deployments? Nah. Not there yet. Pause photo effect. Yeah, there's no blue-green deployment. There's no staging environments. There's just live. So basically, you need to have a test function app, and then you can have multiple functions inside that. So it's a bit raw. But to continue with the quick guide, authentication. You can turn on, like the popular authentication mechanisms. So if you're going to expose an endpoint, you want to make sure you're authenticated. It'll do that. You got CORS. So we're not going to go through security or anything, but you can configure CORS. This is actually this is one thing I do want to say. Allowed origins for CORS. The defaults are functions-staging.azure.com, and I was like, yes, there's an undocumented staging environment that I can post to. No. Let's see what happens when you do this. Okay, if I search, that was something different. Functions.staging. Whatever, right? That, and Azure as well. You get taken to the project Kudu Azure Functions portal. The whole function portal is in GitHub, and the reason why they've added that as CORS is for their internal deployment process. So that's not anything that you can hook into. That's just their deployment pipeline. But it is quite cool that you can see, you can actually get the Azure Functions portal, basically, and run it locally, which is quite cool. But the reason, this is also quite funny, the reason why lots of this portal doesn't work, if you click on Azure Function tests, there is one test. That's why, right? This is not written in TDD.
I love it how the last commit was restarting tabs.
Again, raw, but it is super cool. So you've got other things you can set up. You can hook right into a Dev Console into the thing. You've got all the Kudu services. So if you're not familiar with Kudu, Kudu's freaking awesome. Kudu is kind of the helpers that are running underneath your application, your web app, and this works in web app, logic apps, all of the apps. So basically, you type in your URL and you type in SCM. I can't remember what SCM stands for, but that takes you to the
source control.
It can't be. I really hope. Is it? Oh dear. But you can do lots of cool stuff in here that isn't just source control related. So inside here, for instance, you go kind of Debug Console. You can get some pretend PowerShell, and when this thing eventually loads, that's the loading icon. it'll show me the actual files, and I can edit these inline, like on production, because we test in production now, and I can edit those like straight off the bat. And it uses the Monaco toolset, so you can edit in live. It's quite cool, and you get this with all the different web apps, so that's quite good. All right, okay, so what I want to show you now, so that's basically your very quick, like, I've not got a lot of time. This is me just plowing through different parts of the Azure Function portal. As I say, it is a bit raw, but it's going to be good. So let me flick back to this for a sec.
How much does it cost?
Well, that's an interesting question.
It depends.
Yeah, so what does it cost? It kind of costs nothing or some amount of money, but it is quite good, because if you, in any of the Azure services now, any of the Azure resources, you can click on costs and you can see what it's actually costing you. But if you've got an MSDN subscription, I mean, you're talking not pennies anymore, that's cents. You're talking cents for running stuff. It measures it based on how long the task is running for, I believe. So if you've got a very long running task, then yeah, it's going to take a bit of time. But yeah, if it's quite quick, it's quite cheap.
And your app service plan in terms of the serverless server that you're running on.
Yeah, so if you
use your server first. Yeah, it's basically CPU and memory and things like that. So use that for the period of time it's running, and that's it.
Yeah.
How do you know what server? Do you get to choose what server you want to run your function?
No, not in the dynamic
It's serverless.
platform. It's just running on the best. No, if you do classic, when we set up the Azure function,
cloud.
the cloud's infinite, so it doesn't matter. No,
Runs out of capacity.
which does happen. So yeah, if you remember when we said like create a brand new service, a new function app, and we said classic or dynamic. So classic is the one that's going to just come off your cost of your regular service plan. So that's all accounted for. And basically, your app is always up, unless it goes to sleep. That's something different. The dynamic one is kind of outside of that, and that's just going to cost you on a per user basis. But it is still, unless you're doing like hundreds of thousands of calls, it's still going to be super, super cheap. I believe if you go to something like calculator.azure.com or something, then you can like price it all up.
So is it cost effective to build a serverless app or not?
Yes.
That's the way anyone would do it.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely, and it is, because if you don't need something that's up 100% of the time, then it makes sense. If you don't want to add that memory footprint or the CPU usage to your existing service plan, so like this instance you're paying for, then it makes sense to add this on. And the classic stuff will work fine as soon as they solve the problem of it going to sleep. So yeah. Okay, move on. You're okay?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, that's right. Ask me more if you want. Yes.
Do you know what, the Azure Lambda,
AWS.
AWS Lambda, and they'll talk about the amount of scale that they can leverage. When do you think that would be available in Australia? Is it 6 months away?
For this, I mean, it's available now. So think about what scale means. It means multiple instances, scale out, or it means scale up, like giving you a bigger piece of hardware. If you want that, then use the classic service plan. And yeah, use like a D series, which is like SSD and like cool stuff. So yeah, that's already there. You can do that now. But well, we'll get to exactly what you should build in this. Okay, right. No, I didn't. Right. The testing story is not great, unfortunately. So if you're doing CSharp Script, then everything is a static. And we all know how easy it is to do dependency injection with statics, right? Or maybe we don't. It's really freaking hard. It's basically impossible. So the way you get around it, if you do want like a little public service announcement, if you do want to do CSharp Script, is use a NuGet package, and then put all of your code inside the NuGet package and test that, and then upload that into your function app. I'm hoping they'll solve this, but at the minute that is the story. And there's another gotcha. So using CSharp Script, you can upload like a third-party library, like a DLL, and if you just deploy that in the bin folder, all right, of your function app, you can then just call it. Now, in the CSharp Script, to reference it, you just kind of go #r and then the name of the namespace in the DLL, and it will just magically find it. You then can do like usings and stuff. The downside is when you come to redeploy your app, that DLL will be locked because they don't do a shadow copy. So there's another gotcha.
Deploy it once.
Yeah, The trick, if you really do want to do this trick, and I don't recommend it, is you can still rename the DLL. So you rename the DLL and then upload a new one into its place, and everything will work magically. But at some point, you're going to have a load of DLL. So this is not a great story. If you care about testing and you want to use Azure Function Apps, then use a different language. Use Node. Right? Like seriously, it's super easy. So yeah, I'm going to show you some Node stuff in a sec. Actually, I've done something that I think is quite funny and quite amusing with Node. So I'll show you that in a sec. But also the CD pipeline, we did talk about it. It's not really there because in order to continually deploy, you want to make sure that you have some sort of blue-green deployment. Because if you don't and you just kind of push stuff directly into live, then somebody's going to get some pain. Whenever your requests are being hit. So Azure normally, for all the other applications, the web apps, the logic apps, whatever, they have a staging environment. You upload into the staging, and then you can swap slots. And then you just swap slots, and then suddenly all the new traffic is going to the other kind of instance, the other staging slot, and then that gets kind of promoted, and then you no longer send new requests to the other one, and then that can kind of seamlessly die a death. But a standard blue-green deployment is not supported yet. But I was talking to a client that we're working with about this, and the way that I'm thinking about it is if I'm to write Azure functions, the first thing I'm going to do is try and get some functionality and performance out, and then I'm going to worry about CDing it and testing it, like providing a testing strategy. This is super preview. And if anybody goes, oh, well, that's shit, because like Azure, AWS, Lambdas, they have a staging pipeline and stuff, check the release notes. When they first released their preview, that you couldn't do that in there either. So this is not a new thing, this is just pretty standard. So there's that. So then the question is, what should you write in function apps? My message from this is not to be disheartened. This is cool, really cool tech. It's going to be freaking awesome. But right now, do not depend on this. Right? Do not write production requirements like critical path tasks here. This is for generating thumbnails in blob storage. Right? This is for there's something on a queue. I'm going to log that, and I'm going to do a little bit of analytics or something. This is not your new architecture plans for the next 3 years yet, but it will be. Right? It honestly will be amazing. All right. So let me tell you about something I wrote, and then I'll show you. So a mate of mine put on Facebook, he's trying to make his kid the face of Tinder. Tinder? Turn off the recording! That is the worst. So, that's for me. I'm sorry.
We're doing another recording afterwards, and we'll just double the block.
Please, yeah. Yeah, just edit, and we're back. He's trying to make his kid the face of Kinder, thank you. And in order to do this, you have to basically get all your mates to sign up to the service, and you have to register your email address and verify and set passwords and stuff. So I thought, aha, I've got a talk coming up on Azure Functions. I wonder if I can hack this and I can basically make his kid win. So this is a safe space, right? You're not going to tell on me. But basically, so if I kind of go app services and I go and find my Kinder zombie, what I've written is a function. Oh, you see? Bit raw, unauthorized. Right, let me just hit refresh. So yeah, so I told my mate and said, I reckon I can manipulate this voting system because it's online. What I told him was I'd already done this once before. So my son, a couple of years ago, there was an author who was going to come and visit his school, and he really liked the author, and they had a public voting system. So I wrote a bit of JavaScript that gave his school of only 300 people 10,000 votes. And my son has a signed autographed copy of this book now. So I kind of feel like I can do this. So this code is horrendous, right? This is me just bashing away.
Are entirely those of the author and not of the user.
So I just kind of hacked this thing together, and I did it in Node. I'm using Gorilla Mail, but basically all I'm doing really is I am calling an API to create an email address. I'm getting that email address. I am then registering in the Kinder voting app. I'm then waiting for the response to then get the verification link. I then get the verification link and also create a new password in the Kinder app. And then from there I log in, and then I can vote for my friend's daughter. So this is pretty horrible code, and I was thinking about prettying it up, but it's horrendous. So I get the email address. in the response, I have to set some cookies and I have to do some stuff. This is not the important part. I have to wait for the email. That takes a few seconds. And then when I get the mail, I'm using Cheerio, which is kind of like a jQuery for Node. Like I'm getting this HTML body, and then I'm like looking in it for the register link, and then the register link, I'm kind of getting that, and then I'm doing a post to finish the registration. I'm passing in a super secret password twice. That means it's double secure. And then I have to log in because I need a new cookie for this thing that's for my new session. So I log in with my email address and that. Then I set the cookie, and then I basically do the vote, and I call vote. And you have to pass in the hash. I think that's like the unique reference for my mate's daughter, and her name is Florence. So we've voted for Florence. So we can run that. So basically, this thing's been running for quite a while. Let's run a new one. So there's my new email address. So now that's gone off to Kinder, and then it's going to send me a new email. Luckily, it's quite a fast service. So in a second, I'm monitoring the thing, and then where were we? So that happened.
Is this how Boaty McBoatface got that?
Oh, that would be so good. If that was me, I would totally own it.
They did name one of the submarines Boaty McBoatface.
Yeah, they renamed it back. Oh no, Sir David Attenborough or something, wasn't it?
The icebreaker is Sir David Attenborough, and one of the submarines on the icebreaker is Boaty McBoatface.
I think well done to the internet. I think that's why the internet was made. So basically, that's happened. We voted for my mate Flo. And if we click on monitor, we can see how many votes she's got. From Facebook, my mate managed to get maybe 20 votes. It was pretty good. This thing runs until December. At the minute, the current count is 123 because I asked him and said, I could do 1,000 votes a day. Like, what do you want? And he went, don't go crazy. I reckon like 30 a day. So basically, this thing's running about every hour. And I'm totally going to make my mate's daughter, the face of Kinder. God, does that mean I must play Tinder a lot in my life?
I can only edit so much.
All right.
Tinder accounts?
Yeah, I might have a few. No, I'm good. All right, so what else? That's about it, right? So if you want to go and get started, then the easiest way, open the portal, click New Function App, and then look at the samples and start there. The samples are pretty basic, but they give you a nice idea. The biggest kind of learning point you're going to have is running your regular code in CSharp Script. So we can talk about that another day if you like, but there's really like a limited ecosystem for that script at the minute, but it's coming. One of the first things.
They're going to run Roslyn in there?
Are they?
I don't know. Do you know?
VS Code with the help of an add-on can support CSharp Script, but you still don't get great IntelliSense. So. But this thing called Script CS, if you go to scriptcs.net, I think, that is a command line script runner. So you could write the script with like almost no IntelliSense, and then you could at least compile and run some unit tests and stuff.
Can you deploy it? Sorry.
Can you deploy?
From Visual Studio yet? You
No.
can do it from PowerShell script using the Azure PowerShell stuff.
One of the cool things about the Kudu stuff is you can drag and drop into that folder explorer. Now, I wouldn't suggest that's for your mainstream. This isn't ready for mainstream anyway. But if you do GitHub and then push that in, that seems to work fine. So yeah. So all of the samples are kind of here, and as we've already been to, this is the GitHub, like the open project for their Angular 2 app written in TypeScript. So go and take a look. As I say, it's quite laughable how little tests there are, but that's not the focus right now. I'm sure it's going to get better.
Is that one of the samples?
Should be. So yeah, but just remember that function apps live on top of web jobs. So there's a lot of references to web jobs in some of the resources, and really they're talking about function apps now. So it's going to be slightly fragmented. I imagine that they're going to promote function apps, get that ready, and then deprecate web jobs at some point in the future. So that's that. I think. Any questions? And that's me. And I try and play ukulele occasionally.
You appear to have a skin disease in that picture.
It cost me $5 that picture.
Tinder.
You'll see me. So yeah, so that's kind of what I wanted to show you. Very much hello world, getting started. But honest, right? It is worth investing a bit of time and seeing what you can do with it. because you too could make someone famous. For there you go. So, any questions? Yes.
One quick one. Do the function have any time limit that they can run?
No. So the lambdas do, as I understand. The function apps don't. So I mean, if you accidentally do like an infinite loop, then you're screwed. But yeah, there's no limit. I don't believe. Yes.
So how does versioning work? Like, do you know what
Doesn't.
version of .NET is happening?
No.
What
Use GitHub.
What
version of
.NET?
C#?
Version of .NET C#?
Yeah.
There's nothing in there that supports, like you can't tailor a particular version. I'm guessing it would be like the latest, like 4.6 or whatever, because C# Script is only supported in that, I think.
Well, yeah, that's what Screw's about. So it's running on the full .NET framework, or it could be running .NET Core.
So I'm
C#
sure it's not.
Script runs on the .NET framework under
Yeah.
the hood.
Yeah.
Full.
Yeah, the core guys are separate. Like the way that they're organized inside Microsoft, the core guys are kind of separate from the C#. From the they're not completely separate, but the people actually implementing the stuff are separate from C# Script. So I wouldn't have anticipated. And core is not ready. Okay, so arguably core is ready for production.
It's released.
A few other gotchas, but yeah. Well, yeah. So core's pretty much ready. But Script is like brand new. So you know, from what I know about how Microsoft run, I would have expected. This isn't going public, is it? How public?
It depends. We might try and get it going viral on YouTube now that you've
Oh, awesome,
mentioned
yeah.
Tinder and Kinder and
Just ruining my life. Yeah, that'd be great. So the way that I
Don't worry,
understand,
you'll be famous.
yeah, brilliant. The way that I understand the development teams work in Microsoft, the update 2 for Visual Studio 2015 had C# Script. They probably only finished it like 3 days before. Last year there was a big WPF kind of rejuvenation, and they released a load of stuff, and they open sourced a lot of WPF. So I had dinner with the people who were actually doing that, and like the product managers and stuff, just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And they were telling me like it was pretty much last minute, and like Mark Rusunovich was like, we're not putting that bit live. Oh no, it wasn't Rusunovich, it was Gu. It was the Gu, Scott Gu, said that bit's not ready, we're gonna pull that, and we're gonna release this. So it's like, you know, what you're seeing being released is like, they're working on this right now, which is pretty cool. So, which is why in GitHub and all the open source stuff, you can go in and see the latest commits. That's what they're actually doing. So, it's fucking cool. Any other questions?